tell me what October 3rd, 1979, tell me about your day, that day, and your experience.
Well, I had been working for the taxi company. Well, it was called Airfield Service. It was taxi and limousine for, I don't know, maybe a year or something like that, somewhere in that range. And this was just another day, get in at 7 or 8, and the dispatch sends you where they need you and all. So comes out to the afternoon, and I had a call and to pick up a crew from an airline. We have a separate pickup. They go in a limousine. So I went and picked them up, and as I was putting their luggage in, they were all chattering about how people were sick and puking, and how the bulkheads let loose and the stuff was flying around in there and everything, So traditionally, the captain got in the front seat with me, the driver, and the rest were in the back, and they're still chattering. And the captain, I said, "Rough up there, huh?" He says, "Let me tell you something, son." He says, "You get us through our hotel as fast as you can." So now I'm interpreting this. I mean, there's nothing, people know there was nothing that was forecasted apparently, but it got dark fast. I knew that, and I noticed the wind coming in. Now, this was just when we were leaving, So we were going to Hartford, to the Sheridan, to the old Hartford Sheridan, to drop them off. And, he thanked me and everything and says, "Be careful." I'm like, I turned around, dead-headed back on 91, hit some traffic. And it was Wednesday, and it's not like Friday traffic or anything. So I knew something was a little bit wrong. And then I got to 20, and it was a roadblock. I'm like, what the hell? So I pulled over for the roadblock because I'm working, and I'm getting back to the airport. Well, it turns out there was a guy, person I knew there and everything. And I said, "What's going on?" He says, "I think it was a tornado or something." I says, I was born and raised here in Windsor, and we ain't seen no tornadoes. Anyhow, they let me go through because I got a clearance, and I went to our office. Well, before that, I stopped and saw a buddy. He was checking on Route 20, to make sure that people could come through. And he told me a tornado too, And of course, right off there was the hotel and the plane that was on its side, the one that was out front, everything. And I'm just looking. Now, our office was down a ways on 75. On the right-hand side, it's where the pool table joint is now or something. I'm pretty sure, but it was in that area. So I'm pulling in there to see what's going on. I go in the back where my car's parked, and next to my car, there's a car with another car on top of it, and I go into the office, and then people are freaking out and stuff. "You got to get to the airport right away. You got to get up to we got to take everyone out. We got to bring everybody and bring them to hotels. We got to evacuate." I'm like, Jesus, I have lunch or something, So it turned out that day turned into a morning. We're running people out of the terminal up to Springfield, Enfield, wherever there's a hotel, motel to get them in.
So let me interrupt you there. So, all right. So now your job is to help evacuate people or get people out of the airport as they're landing.
Right.
And are they?
No, they were already stopped landing. These were people that were in the terminal already.
Okay, so are they people that have hired you to take them somewhere, or you're just helping out as a?
No, we went into an emergency mode. It was the company I worked for was owned by Gengris. It was airport service, and so we were basically, I imagine somebody took care of somebody, but we were just on emergency mode and pretty much told that, look. I was still, everybody was still in what's going on here deal, but we had to get people out of there for the safety's sake, and that was part of it. And now the other thing I neglected to tell you was that crew that I had was the last crew to touch down at the airport. And that's why that guy told me, he says, "You got more than a thunderstorm here, son." And he was giving me all the hints he could without calling it.
So tell me what you encountered when you were picking these people up and bringing them. Were they scared? Did they not really understand what was going on? Tell me about that.
There was so many people, and a lot of them were from different areas, and a lot of them were living here and coming in and things like that. And I got 11 people or so in the limo, and it was just a smorgasbord of everything. People were like flipping out and saying, "Oh my God, look at this! Oh geez, oh no!" And other people that wanted to continue and go home, they're complaining about what the heck, so there were some people that were arrogant about it, that didn't want to go to a hotel or stay a night or nothing. They wanted to get on a plane and go, And to me, and to the people that were from there, that was, it's not the right way to do it. They were just saying, "Oh, gee, these people here, yeah, you don't know what a storm is, and this and that." And we're like, I had to get belligerent with one of them. And
so were there people that say were you're picking up that maybe they lived in Hartford or Wethersfield? Did you have to take them somewhere else?
Well, there was people at the terminal that were pretty much designating that, and it was like, if we had to go to A or to B or to C or whatever, so they tried to, whoever's going to a hotel or whoever's going here, we're pretty much taking everybody out. And I'm sure I think they had a bus company there that doing some stuff too, and there was a lot of people in there obviously, and they couldn't just do it with limos and everything, but I worked into the morning bringing, shuttling people pretty much all over the place. But I did get dinner, so.
Tell me what you saw, Tell me what it looked like when you ventured out that first trip. I mean, so now there was a tornado. Now you're looking around. I mean, what did it look like to you?
Well, the first time that I just kind of freaked out, looking, was when I was coming down 75 from Hartford, from dropping off the crew, and I see the first thing, and I'm looking at, I know people that have businesses there. I stopped at one guy's garage, and he says, "Burns, you won't believe it. I had 3 V8 engines on the floor. They were spinning around inside the building, And I'm like, whew, man, it is crazy. And and then the car on top of the car next to mine, in the parking lot, and it was like, oh, geez. That's why when I got to start to bring people from the, terminal and out, and like you were asking before, everybody had a different opinion, But when you have 10 people in there talking and doing whatever, it kind of gets on you. I tried to shut my ears and just drive, but there were some people there that it was just nothing to them. Just get me home.
So you basically worked all night into the morning. What do you remember about when you were done with that task? Did you go home? What do you remember was happening at that point?
Yeah, well, going back to that during the daytime, my wife was working. When we came back, my wife was working, so I couldn't really get a hold of her by phone or anything. My mother had our daughter, 2-year-old daughter, and I wasn't able to get a hold of her. So that was one time that I did make a trip, and I stopped by to see my mom. Now, she didn't have news on or nothing. She didn't know anything. Nobody knew. We were down in Wilson, and she didn't know anything about it. I stopped by to see how everybody was, and she was kind of like, "Oh, what do you mean?" I says, "Well, there's a bad storm. I didn't tell her it was a tornado or nothing, but I said, it's a bad storm up there and everything. I just hoping everybody's okay, And I asked her to get a hold of Sandy and tell her that everything's all right. Well, when I got home, and it was probably 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, it wasn't all night long, It was late night. And when I got home to the wife, she said, I didn't even know what you were talking about, you know. She worked at CVS in the Wilson Center there, and she's saying that, well, we didn't know there was a tornado, you know. I mean, some people said it and everything, but it was just all this stuff, and I'm like, man. So that was that. I mean, I got home, and the next day I don't know, I don't remember if I worked the whole day the next day or what, but anyhow, we still had things to do. And that's where, for the most part, I talked to people and saw things, you know, and got all the stories. I mean, people flying in the air, and it's like, oh boy.
Yeah. So tell me about that. So now the tornado's over. Your immediate emergency job was over. So you were running on adrenaline then, and now it's over. But so what kind of stories were you hearing? What was your participation, I guess?
Well, one thing is, you know, being a Windsor guy, I had friends up there and everything, and some people lived right in the path, and I trying to find out how people are, you know. So I hooked up with some fire department people and stuff, you know, and then my bank, the roof came off of my bank, and I told them I'll be out back looking for my money, for crying out loud, you know. And
well, so tell me about the fire department now. What was your involvement? You know, tell me what was going on with the fire department.
Well, I had quite a few friends in the fire department. The Windsor Fire Department, we were raising my kids on Wilson Avenue and Wilson Fires right up the street, and a lot of those guys, you know, they were put into action, and they had certain places where they were, and of course traffic was one thing because people coming to, you know, see what's going on, and it turned into a show and tell type of thing, you know, and that was one of the things they had to deal with, but everybody was just like, you know, freaked out. It was like nobody could really answer questions, and I asked about a couple of certain people, and, you know, they'd say, well, I think I heard they went to the hospital, but I don't know, you know, don't know anything from there. And it was just like, you know, it took days before people really realized what the hell happened.
Right. And that's what we've heard. Yeah, we've heard, because this is a day, you know, before cell phones, before email,
right.
You know, and it's like if you didn't, you know, and there was not power in some areas of the town.
Oh, no, we lost communication, right? We lost communication at one point in time for a while, you know, from the terminal where we had our people set up. But I just went on adrenaline and knowing what we had to do about picking up this group of people and bringing them here and that there. I mean, the driving's easy, you load them up and stuff, but the hardest part was having to listen to these people and how there's just so many different opinions of you know, what, oh, this is just a little storm here, you know, and like people's houses got wiped out. And
so what was it like going back do you remember, what was it like going back to work? So this is kind of your new normal now, that area, you know, where your job was, I mean, was still pretty beat up. Was it surreal to go back to work, you know, when the emergency part of it was over?
Yeah, well, I don't have the best recollection of it, but I know it was pretty much like the guys I was working with, all good people, you know, and we all kind of jumped in and helped people that we could, you know, like sometimes somebody would say, hey, you know, we got to go down to so-and-so, and he's got stuff he's got to get moved out and everything, and we do that, you know. Now, that was pretty much on their time or whatever, but it was, you know, a good thing to do, and you're helping people out for that and getting the job done. You know, I mean, we're still moving people somewhere, but I think I probably only went like Thursday and Friday. Well, I had the weekend off anyhow, and I don't think I worked there after the following week and stuff, because there was just, you know, they cut the crew a little bit, and there wasn't. Didn't really come back into reality for a little while.
So as a regular guy, you must have been aware of stuff going on in town and people. You said you had friends maybe in that area.
Yeah.
Do you remember one of the things that people are telling us is that they remember, and you kind of touched on it, everybody was helping each other. There was like a great, even though Pequannock and Wilson are, far apart, that there were people coming from all over to help in Pequannock. Do you got that feeling that there was that community sense of community?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's plenty of people from, say Wilson or whoever, with their chainsaws up there and with wreckers and whatever else to get things try and get things back to normal, And I mean, Windsor's a small community. I mean, it's pretty tight.
Have you lived here your whole life?
Yeah, I was born and raised.
And it's most of the people that we're talking to, it's very interesting because that they've been through it and they're born and raised still here, a lot of them. Yeah. And I find, I'm an example as well. I was born here, raised here, still live here.
Yeah.
And it's kind of an interesting feeling that people have about this town, I think. I think that was an example.
Well, it definitely brought a community together for a while. It was something that happened. And, it was bigger than the Shad Derby. I mean, people looked at it, but the downside was the people that, lost their life and injured and whatever else. That was the bad side, obviously. And people couldn't do much about that,
Do you think there were lasting effects of the tornado? This is just one of the questions that we have.
Yeah.
Well, do you think there were any lasting effects, whether physical or emotional?
On me?
Or the community? I don't know.
Overall, some people suffered. Because I know people that lost a lot of stuff. Family things and stuff like that. And that stays with you for a long time. And I'm sure, it's not a talk now, but if it does get into a conversation that, the people that lost their house and lost everything, all their family things, and they don't forget that.
Yeah, definitely.
I wouldn't, if we lost everything in the wind.
Just looking through my notes here. Strongest memories, I think we talked about that. Just trying to think if there's anything we didn't touch on here. I'm asking this to everybody, but I know you weren't right in the storm, but
nope.
Does weather affect you now? When you see the weather changing, do you remember thinking back? Tell me a little.
Yeah, I have a few things that I look at, and I drive my wife nuts on it because I do it all the time. And number one is the dark clouds. The dark clouds come right in. Number two is, which is the most important, this is on me. I don't know about, the meteorologists, what they do, but the wind, and I notice this too, changes 180 degrees in no time like that. There's wind coming like this, and next thing you know, it's going like that. Hit the dirt. That's a tornado coming. And like I said, I don't know if that's legitimate, but it scares me. And I wasn't in it, but as I said before, I talked to plenty of people, and I was there enough to see the wind, coming through the meadows and whatever, and the dark clouds. And if that stuff comes, you got to watch that.
I interviewed somebody who said that they would take snowstorms, electricity over tornado anytime because snowstorms you can hunker down and just be in your house and and light a fire or whatever. But tornadoes, you're totally out of control because it's up to what that's going to do.
Oh yeah, it's much more violent. Yeah.
Is there anything we didn't talk about that you want to share? I'm looking through my questions. I feel like we've asked everything. Anything about that day? Anything that you want to make sure people understand about that day or your experience?
Well, there is one thing, and it was, it would be having to do with the crew, and how they kind of prepared me for something that I've never been in before. You know, I've never been involved in before, anything. And I mean, I know that pilot knew there was something going on, you know, and he makes his living up in the air, so he knows what's going on. And he did that, and if I'm not mistaken, he either called in a thank you to our dispatcher to thank me, or wrote a letter or something, because I remember, I don't know, weeks down the road or something, there was something to do with, hey, Burns, you know, they sent you a message, they wanted to thank you for your trip down to Hartford or whatever, you know, getting them in a safe place. I mean, that's my job. That was, you know, but I thought it was a nice thing for them to do. And they were, you know, they were good about talking about it, because it was a rough landing. I mean, them people that were in that touchdown, which I'm surprised some of them haven't come across, you know, because I'm sure plenty of them were flying back here and they live in the area, you know, but that it was pretty ugly from what the crew said, and I don't think they'd be BSing.